Okay, let's unpack this. We need to talk about communication, but not the boring stuff.
Right.
Not the subject, verb, object, grammar, class stuff. I'm talking about the stuff that feels like sorcery.
Ah,
We often talk about communication as a soft skill, don't we? Like, oh, be nice, or make sure you listen actively, or don't cross your arms.
that sort of generic
Mm-hmm.
corporate advice.
Exactly, that stuff. But then, every once in a while, you encounter a human being. Maybe you've met one, maybe you've just seen them on a TED stage or in an old documentary, who seems to be operating on a completely different, well, a different operating system.
The outliers.
Yeah.
The ones who defy the standard rules of social physics.
The outliers. That's the perfect word. They walk into a room that is absolutely chaotic. I mean, maybe it's a boardroom screaming match. Maybe it's a family just falling apart. And the temperature in the room just drops 10 degrees.
You can feel it shift.
You can. They look at you and you feel like they aren't just looking at your face. They're reading your source code. They say 3 simple words and suddenly you're crying or you're laughing or you're realizing your entire life strategy has been wrong.
And we usually just label those people as charismatic or gifted. We say they have presence.
Right. We call it magic. We say, oh, she just has the gift, or he's a natural. And that's usually where the conversation ends. It's a black box.
It is.
We admire it, but we don't try to open it because we assume it's inaccessible. But what if it wasn't? What if that magic was actually a code? What if you could break it down line by line, gesture by gesture, tone by tone, and actually, learn it?
That is the exact premise of the deep dive
Yeah.
we're embarking on today. And honestly, I have read a lot of books on communication, psychology, therapy,
Yeah.
but this one is special.
Oh, yeah.
It is one of the most fascinating technical breakdowns of human connection I have ever come across.
Mm.
We're looking at a book called Virginia Satir, The Patterns of Her Magic by Steve Andreas.
And just to set the stakes here, when we say Virginia Satir was a giant in her field, we aren't exaggerating. We aren't just using giant as a metaphor.
Not at all. In the history of psychology, specifically family therapy, she is often called the Columbus of family therapy.
The Columbus.
Yeah. Before her, therapy was largely about the individual. You had the problem child or the depressed mother or the alcoholic father, and you treated them in a silo. Satir was the pioneer who essentially invented the idea that you had to treat the whole system.
You can't fix the gear if you don't look at the machine.
You can't.
Yeah.
And she was the first one to really put the whole machine on the table.
But beyond her academic contributions, which were massive, she was a force of nature physically, right?
Oh, she was literally a giant. She was 6 feet tall. And in the 1960s and 70s, for a woman to be that tall, wearing high heels with big hair and this massive personality, she commanded space just by existing.
Big hair, big presence. I love that image.
Huge presence. She had this uncanny ability to walk into a room of absolute chaos. I'm talking about a family screaming at each other, or a person in deep psychosis in a mental ward. And within minutes, she would establish a connection that was so profound, observers were just baffled. They couldn't track what she had done.
And that's the conflict this book addresses, isn't it? For years, people watched her work. She did these famous demonstrations in front of hundreds of people, and they said, well, that's just Virginia. She's intuitive. You can't teach that. It's magic.
It's like watching a magician pull a rabbit out of a hat and saying, well, they just have a special relationship with rabbits.
Exactly. It completely dismisses the skill involved.
Right. But Steve Andreas and Richard Bandler, who wrote the foreword, they come from a very different world. They come from the world of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. And we should probably clarify what that is for a second, because it get a bad rap sometimes.
Yeah, people hear NLP and think mind control or pickup artists.
Exactly. But at its core, the original philosophy of NLP, specifically the work of Bandler and Grinder and Andreas, was modeling. Their belief was, if a human being can do it, it's not magic. It's a structure. It's a pattern of neurology and language.
A teachable
A
path.
teachable pattern. And if we look close enough, if we slow the tape down, we can decode it. So this book isn't a biography. It's not about where she was born or her favorite color. It's a technical manual. They took a magnifying glass to her sessions, specifically one incredible transcript we're going to analyze later, to prove that her magic was actually a set of very precise, learnable tools.
I love that concept,
Yeah.
demystifying the mystic, taking the rainbow and putting it through a prism to see the actual wavelengths.
That's it.
And we have to start with the story from the foreword by Richard Bandler because it sets the scene so perfectly. It really grounds this whole discussion away from the clinical vibe and into the, the gritty real world.
It does. It's such a human moment.
Yeah.
So picture this. It's the 1970s. Richard Bandler, who is this brilliant but somewhat rebellious figure in psychology, is in his driveway in California. He's working on his car.
So he's not in a suit. He's not in a clinic.
No, he's covered in grease. It's probably hot. He's frustrated, knuckles scraped, wrestling with an engine that won't cooperate. We've all been there.
Oh, yeah?
You're trying to turn a bolt that is rusted shut, and you are just filled with this specific type of mechanical rage.
The why won't this work rage, a completely universal experience.
Absolutely. And Bandler talks about how usually when people walked up his driveway while he was in that state, they were tentative. They were nervous.
Sure.
People are generally unsure of themselves when they enter someone else's space, especially if that person is angry at a carburetor. They approach with hesitation. They scan for danger. They project a sorry to bother you energy.
Right, they are pre-apologizing for existing.
Exactly. But then he looks up from the engine, and there's Virginia Satir
Just walking up the driveway.
walking up the driveway. And Bandler notes something immediate. She had zero hesitation. She wasn't aggressive. She wasn't arrogant. She wasn't apologetic. She was just congruent. That's the word he uses. He says she was equally at home on a stage in front of 1,000 people, sitting with a schizophrenic patient in a hospital, or standing in a greasy driveway.
Let's pause on that word. Congruence.
Yeah.
That's a term we're going to hear a lot today, I think. It feels like the central pillar of her architecture. What does that actually mean in this context? Because it sounds like confidence, but I feel like it's deeper than that.
It is significantly deeper.
Right.
Confidence can be a mask. You can be confident and be faking it. That's what a con artist does. Congruence means alignment.
Alignment.
It means your insides match your outsides. It means your thoughts, your feelings, your facial expression, your body language, and your words are all sending the exact same signal. There is no leakage of doubt or deception.
So if I'm angry, I look angry and I say I'm angry. If I'm happy, I look happy and say I'm happy.
Yes, but it's even more than that. It's a lack of internal conflict. When you meet someone who is fully congruent, it's almost hypnotic because we are so used to people wearing masks.
Right.
We're used to people saying, I'm fine, while their jaw is clenched. Satir didn't do that. She was all one piece.
So Bandler sees this woman who is completely one piece, just walking up his driveway.
Exactly. And he realized in that moment that her magic wasn't just what she said, it was how she was. But, and this is the big but of the book, how she was expressed itself through very specific verbal and nonverbal behaviors that could be tracked.
So our mission today is to do exactly what Andreas and Bandler did. We are going to decode Virginia Satir. We aren't just going to admire her from afar. We're going to break down her toolkit so you, the listener, can actually take pieces of this and use them.
Precisely. We're going to structure this logically. First, we'll look at the why, her core attitudes. These are the beliefs that powered the machine. Then the how, the specific verbal patterns, the reframing, the linguistic tricks she used. Then we are going to do a deep play-by-play analysis of a real therapy session transcript with a woman named Linda, which is where you really see these tools in action.
Love it.
And finally, we'll look at her philosophy on touch and meditation.
It's like Jedi training for empathy.
That is a surprisingly accurate description
That's right.
because, like the Force, it requires both a philosophy and a set of skills.
Okay, so let's jump into part one, the core attitudes, the why. Because you can learn the words, you can memorize the script, but if you don't have the mindset, it's just manipulation, right?
Exactly.
If I use these techniques to sell used cars or trick someone, it feels different than if I use them to heal a family.
Correct. And listeners are very good at spotting that difference. The techniques are powerful, but they are powered by her beliefs.
Yeah.
If you use the techniques without the beliefs, people feel manipulated. They sense the incongruence, the mismatch between your smooth words and your selfish intent.
They feel it in their gut.
They do. If you use them with the beliefs, people feel seen. And the biggest, most radical belief she held was about positive intentions.
This is a tough one for a lot of people. The idea that people mean well even when they do mean things. It sounds nice on a greeting card, but in the real world, when someone cuts you off in traffic or insults you or worse.
It is a radical stance. Satir believed that at the core, every human being is trying to survive, trying to protect themselves, or trying to connect. Even if their behavior is destructive, bizarre, or cruel, the intention behind it has a positive purpose for them.
Okay, for them.
And that distinction is vital. Positive for them, not necessarily for the world.
The source gives an example that really tests this theory. I mean, it's the extreme of the extreme. It's the kind of example that makes you want to say, okay, surely the theory breaks down here.
It does. She discusses a workshop group she ran. In this group, she had a survivor of a Nazi death camp, a woman who had lived through hell.
Okay.
And in the same group, sitting in the circle, she had an ex-guard from a concentration camp.
I cannot imagine the tension in that room. Most therapists would say, this is unsafe, keep them apart, or the guard is a monster, end of story, get him out.
Of course.
How do you even begin to bridge that chasm?
Exactly. The easy path, the moral path, in many people's eyes, would be to condemn the guard, to shame him. But Satir's goal was healing, not judgment. She managed to help them find a common humanity. Now, be very clear. She didn't excuse the Holocaust.
Right.
She didn't say the behavior was okay. She didn't say, it's fine that you did that.
Forgiveness doesn't mean amnesia.
Exactly. But she was able to peel back the layers until they could see the human fear, the human need for survival, the human conditioning underneath the uniforms.
She looked past the behavior.
She operated from the presupposition that if you dig deep enough past the ideology, past the cruelty, you find a human being who is terrified and trying to survive.
That distinction between intention and behavior is the key, isn't it?
It is the master key to her entire method. If I attack your behavior, if I say you are a monster, you will defend yourself.
Yep.
You have to.
The shields go up.
Your ego shields go up, your adrenaline spikes, and you dig in. You become the monster I accused you of being. But if I validate your intention, if I say, I can see you were trying to be safe, or I can see you were trying to maintain order so you wouldn't be punished yourself, then I'm standing next to you.
You're aligning with their survival instinct.
Yes. Once I validate the intention, I can invite you to change the behavior.
Yeah.
I can say your intention to be safe is valid. We all want to be safe. But this behavior of hurting others, that's not working. It's destroying your soul and others' lives. Let's find a new way to satisfy that need for safety.
So you validate the why so you can change the what.
Exactly. It separates the sinner from the sin, to use a theological metaphor, but she applied it in a strictly psychological, functional way.
There's a more domestic example in the book that brings us home to everyday life. Because most of us aren't dealing with concentration camp guards, but we are dealing with family members. The father yelling at his kids. We've all seen this guy in the grocery store.
Yes, this is a classic family therapy scene. You have a father who is screaming at his children. He looks angry. He sounds abusive. His face is red. Most people would label him the angry dad and tell him to calm down.
Which, as we know, usually makes an angry person much angrier.
Telling someone to calm down has a 0% success rate in the history of humanity.
Statistics support that.
Satir looks at him, and she doesn't see a monster. She sees a desperate man. She says to him essentially, I hear you yelling. And what I hear in that yelling is that you are desperately trying to teach them to be good people because you want them to have a good life. You're trying to please their mother. You are showing concern and caring, but it's coming out loud.
That is a massive reframe. She turned abuse into clumsy caring. But isn't that risky? Are you letting him off the hook?
That's the common critique. You're coddling him. But think about the effect on the father. He expects to be scolded. He knows he's yelling. He probably hates himself for it.
He's ready for a fight.
He is. When Satir says that, he feels understood. Yes, I'm trying to help them. Why don't they listen?
He feels like she's on his side.
And once he agrees with that, once he feels Satir's on his team, she can pivot. She can say, okay, so your caring is wonderful. Your intention is noble, but the yelling is scary. It's making them deaf to your message.
They can't hear the love because of the noise.
How can we keep the caring but change the volume so they can actually hear you?
Yeah.
It's disarming. You can't fight someone who is agreeing with your secret good intentions.
No, you can't. It just melts the resistance.
Precisely. It creates a platform of agreement to stand on before you tackle the disagreement. If you try to change the behavior before you validate the intention, you get war.
This leads right into her second core attitude, which is this concept of equality, the I-thou relationship. This feels like it challenges the whole structure of traditional medicine.
It does. Satir was very anti-hierarchy. In the traditional medical model, especially in the mid-20th century, the doctor's up here on a pedestal.
Right.
The patient is down there broken and ignorant. The doctor knows, the patient receives. The doctor fixes, the patient is fixed. Satir refused to play that game. She wanted to be a human being meeting another human being.
The book mentions some very specific verbal tics she had that demonstrated this. She used the phrase all right a lot.
She did. And Andreas, being the NLP detective he is, analyzes this. It wasn't just a filler word like When she said all right, she was literally signaling all is right. Everything is valid.
So it wasn't, okay, let's move on. It was, what you just said is right.
What you just said is valid. Your reality is accepted here. And even more telling, if a client disagreed with her, if she made an interpretation and the client said, no, that's not it, I don't feel that way, she would immediately say, oh, so I was wrong.
Which, for a world-famous expert, is rare. Usually experts double down. No, you're in denial, you just don't see it yet.
It is incredibly rare. Most experts would argue or say, well, you're resisting the treatment. Satir would just say, oh, I was wrong, tell me more. She completely flattened the power dynamic.
She made it safe for the client to be the expert on their own life.
Exactly. She wasn't trying to be right. She was trying to connect. She realized that being right is a consolation prize. Connection is the real prize.
And this leads to that concept of the universal we. I found this really touching. She wouldn't just say, you feel pain. She would connect it to the human experience.
Yes, she was constantly building bridges. There's a beautiful moment described in the source where she's working with a father and a son who are at war with each other. The father is rigid, authoritative, old school. The son is rebellious, angry.
They see each other as enemies.
Totally. Satir starts talking to the father about his own childhood, about the pain he felt when his father was hard on him.
Digging into the dad's history, finding the wounded boy inside the angry man.
Right. And once the dad connects to that pain, once he tears up remembering his own father's harshness, Satir turns to the son and says, so you know that piece too.
Oof, so you know that piece too.
In that one sentence, she destroys the enemy frame. Suddenly, they aren't oppressor and victim. They are two men who both know what it feels like to be hurt by a father.
They're comrades.
They are comrades in the same war. That is the universal we. She turns isolated suffering into shared human experience. He takes the shame out of it. You aren't weird for feeling this. We all feel this.
It's amazing how these subtle shifts in perspective change everything. And that really brings us to part two, the verbal tools, the how. Because she had these attitudes, but she implemented them with surgical precision in her language. It wasn't just vibes, it was grammar.
Yes. The attitudes are the engine, but the words are the transmission. And the first major tool is reframing. We touched on it with the yelling dad, but we need to go deeper. Reframing is the art of changing the wrapper of an experience.
The wrapper.
The facts remain the same. The dad yelled, the car broke down. But the meaning changes. From hate to clumsy love, from disaster to adventure.
The book lists a few quick ones. Nagging becomes evidence of caring. Punishment becomes protective. But the most powerful example, and perhaps the most controversial one in the book, is the story of the woman and the bullwhip.
Yeah. We need to pause here. This one is heavy. It's important to warn listeners that this involves severe physical abuse. It really tests the limits of reframe.
So go ahead, walk us through it.
Satir was working with a woman who had been severely abused by her father. He used to beat her with a bullwhip.
A bullwhip?
Not just a belt, a weapon.
Yeah.
Then he eventually abandoned her at her grandparents' house. It's a horrific trauma. The woman was carrying this belief that she was unlovable, that she was trash, because that's what the behavior implied. My father beat me and threw me away.
How do you even begin to reframe that? You can't say he did it because he loved you.
Yeah.
That's insulting. That's gaslighting. That would be criminal.
Exactly. That would be a lie. Satir didn't do that. She listened to the story and she found a specific detail. The father didn't just leave her anywhere. He didn't leave her in the woods or at an orphanage or on the street. He took her to his parents' house. He took her to family. Satir reframed his behavior not as good, but as an act of desperation by a man who had no skills, no ability to parent, and who knew he was dangerous.
So she wasn't excusing it.
Not at all. She reframed the abandonment as, he realized he was destroying you, and he took you to the only place he knew you might be safe from him.
Wow. That stops me in my tracks.
She redescribed his behavior as doing the best he could with his limited understanding. Now, this doesn't excuse the abuse. I want to be super clear. It doesn't mean he was a good dad.
Of course not.
But for the daughter, the shift is profound. It changes, my father threw me away because I am garbage, to my father was a broken man who tried to save me from himself.
It removes the poison from the wound. It stops her from internalizing the abuse as a statement about her worth.
Precisely. That is the magic of reframing. It's not about making the abuser look good. It's about liberating the victim from the narrative of worthlessness.
And linguistically, Andreas points out that she often did this by redescribing angry or violent behavior, using sterile or mechanical terms.
Yes, she would call hitting a way he brings out his thoughts.
A way he brings out his thoughts. That takes all the emotional heat out of it. It sounds almost clinical.
It does. It turns violence, which is a hot, terrifying word, into clumsy communication.
Oh.
And clumsy communication can be fixed. Violence feels permanent. It lowers the emotional temperature in the room so that cognitive work can actually happen.
Let's move to the next tool, which the book calls the power of presuppositions. This feels a bit like the Jedi mind trick section of the deep dive.
It is the most technical part of Andreas's analysis. A presupposition is something that a sentence assumes to be true in order for the sentence to make sense. It's the hidden scaffolding of a sentence.
Okay.
If I ask you, have you stopped beating your wife? I'm presupposing you were beating your wife. You can't answer the question yes or no without accepting the premise.
Right. It traps you in the assumption. If I say no, I'm still beating her. If I say yes, I admit I used to. It's a verbal trap.
Satir used this structure for good. She used it to trap people in their own capability. For example, instead of asking a client, do you think you can finish this task? Which allows for a no, she would ask.
Let me guess. Something like, how great will you feel when you finish?
Close. Even more subtle. She would ask, when you have finished, how will you know?
When you have finished. Not if. When.
The sentence assumes you will finish. That part isn't up for debate. The only question is how will you know? The brain skips over the can I do it doubt and goes straight to visualizing the completion state. It forces the brain to run a simulation of success.
It smuggles confidence past the security guards of the conscious mind.
Beautifully put. The conscious mind is busy answering how will I know, while the unconscious mind accepts I will finish. Another favorite of hers was how she handled I can't.
Oh, that's a big one.
A client would say, I can't forgive him. Satir wouldn't argue. She wouldn't say, yes, you can. She would say, we may not do that today.
We may not do that today. I love that. It's so gentle.
It does two things. One, it adds the word today, which presupposes that it's possible tomorrow or next week.
Right.
It turns a permanent inability, I can't, into a temporary state, not today.
Yeah.
And two, it takes the pressure off. We may not do that today. The client relaxes. They feel release. And paradoxically, when the pressure is off, change often happens faster.
It's so subtle. If you aren't listening for it, you miss it completely. But your brain hears it.
Your unconscious mind hears it loud and clear. It is possible, just not right now. It plants the seed of possibility without triggering resistance. It's gardening, not carpentry.
The third verbal tool mentioned is linkage and embedded commands. This is about moving people literally and figuratively.
Satir was very physical. She moved people around to create sculptures of their family dynamic.
Right, the family sculpting.
She would physically position people to show how they felt. But to get people to move, especially resistant, shy, or angry people, she used a technique called linkage. It's a chain of agreement.
How does that work?
You start with a command that is easy, undeniable, and requires no effort. For example, look at me.
Okay, easy enough. I look at you.
Most people will instinctively look. It's a reflex. Once they comply with that, she links it with the word and follows with the more difficult commands. Look at me and listen to what I say.
Ah, so the look at me creates a yes momentum.
Exactly. The brain says, okay, I looked, I'm cooperating, I'm in yes mode. Then the and bridges that compliance to the next instruction. Listen to what I say. It's much harder to resist the second command if you've already agreed to the first one. It creates a flow of cooperation.
It's like greasing the slide. Once you start sliding, you keep going.
And she would use this for internal states, too. Close your eyes, yeah, and allow yourself to remember. If she just said, remember a painful memory, you might block it, but close your eyes is safe and allow yourself.
He's gentle. She links the physical safety to the emotional risk.
It's about leading the horse to water, sip by sip.
It is.
This is all building up to the main event of the book, the case study, the Linda transcript.
Yes. This is where the rubber meets the road. The book provides a verbatim transcript of a session with a woman named Linda, and it is a masterclass. It's like watching frame-by-frame analysis of a grandmaster chess match, but for emotions.
If you want to see these tools woven together, this is where you look.
This is exactly where you look.
So set the scene for us. Who is Linda and what is her problem?
Linda is a woman participating in one of Satir's workshops. She is carrying a massive amount of resentment toward her mother. She describes her mother using incredibly harsh language. She calls her an arch-villain.
Strong words, not just mean, but arch-villain, like a cartoon bad guy. Very strong. It implies intentional malice. Linda feels her mother was cold, critical and unloving. She feels like a victim. And her goal, or rather, the goal Satir gently guides her toward, is forgiveness. But not just, I forgive you in words. Satir wasn't interested in lip service. She wanted a true emotional shift from resentment to compassion.
And Andres breaks this down minute by minute. One of the first big moments he highlights is a shift in pronouns, the we erode ourselves moment.
This is brilliant. Linda is talking about how much she hates her mother, how much she resents her. She's in a spiral of blame. Satir interrupts gently and says, we erode ourselves.
Stop there. Why we and why erode?
This is the universal we again.
Yeah.
By saying we, she stops Libba from feeling alone or defective. She's saying, this is what humans do. You aren't broken, you're human.
Okay.
But the phrase erode ourselves is the real magic. It shifts the locus of control. Linda thinks her mother is hurting her. Satir rephrases it as an internal process. We erode ourselves with this hatred.
Oh, I see. If I'm the one doing the eroding, then I can stop.
Exactly. If the mother is the one hurting me, I am powerless until she changes. And since she's the arch villain, she's never going to change. So I am stuck. But if I am eroding myself by holding on to this anger, then I have the power to stop. It empowers Linda without blaming her.
That is such a delicate balance. You don't want to victim blame. It's your fault you're sad, but you have to give them agency.
And Satir does it with that universal we. She doesn't say, you are eroding yourself, Linda. That would feel like an attack. She says, we erode ourselves. It's a philosophical statement that Linda can step into.
As the session progresses, it seems to drift into something that isn't quite normal conversation. The book calls it a hypnotic induction.
It absolutely is. Satir hated the word hypnosis because she thought it sounded manipulative. She thought it sounded like a stage show.
Like swinging a pocket watch.
Right. But what she did was pure Ericksonian hypnosis. Her voice would drop. She would slow down. She would start using vague, poetic language.
The low, slow, hypnotic voice.
Yes. And in this session, she introduces a prop, a pillow.
The pillow exercise. This sounds a bit woo-woo, but tell me the mechanics. Why a pillow?
She asks Linda to imagine the pillow represents her mother, or specifically, the painful and wonderful memories of her mother.
And there's the presupposition again?
No, the presupposition again. She assumes there were wonderful memories too, even though Linda called her an arch villain. She just slips that in.
Sneaking the good stuff in with the bad.
Right. She holds the pillow. This creates dissociation. Linda isn't talking about her feelings inside her body. She's looking at them over there on the pillow.
It makes it safe to look at them.
It does. If the pain is inside you, it's overwhelming. If it's in a pillow, you can study it.
It separates the person from the pain. The pain is in the pillow, not in me.
Exactly. And while Linda is staring at this pillow, Satir starts weaving this trance. She talks about how we carry these burdens, and then she uses a classic hypnotic technique called the tag question.
What's a tag question?
She says something like, you've got to be careful who you get to love. Is that not true?
Is that not true?
That little tag at the end invites agreement. It locks in the previous statement. It is a nice day, isn't it? You are ready to change, aren't you? It pulls a yes out of the listener. Satir stacks these up. Is that not true? Today, she is building a staircase of yeses that leads Linda out of her resentment.
She gets Linda nodding, literally or figuratively.
She does.
But Linda doesn't just roll over, right? There's a moment where she pushes back. She says, essentially, I get it intellectually, but I can't feel it.
This is the critical moment. This is where most amateur therapists or friends trying to help fail. They would say, come on, Linda, try harder. Or, why are you being so difficult?
You're blocking your own progress. Get out of your own way.
Right, which creates a fight. Linda pushes back, saying she knows it in her head but can't bring it through to her heart. Watch what Satir does. She compliments her.
She compliments the resistance.
She says, I sense about you that you have a highly developed ability to stand firm.
Wow. She took stubborn refusal and turned it into integrity or strength.
Exactly. Yeah. She reframes the resistance as a virtue, a highly developed ability to stand firm. Linda actually smiles and says, that's called stubborn.
Linda calls herself out.
Yes. Because Satir didn't attack her, Linda feels safe enough to joke about it. Satir validates the stubbornness but keeps the reframe. She says, well, it could be stubborn, but it's also standing firm.
She agrees, but keeps it positive.
By validating the resistance evaporates. Linda laughs, the tension breaks, and suddenly they can move forward.
It's judo. You use the opponent's momentum against them, or rather for them.
It is emotional judo. If you push against a stubborn person, they push back. If you praise their strength, they relax. You align with them.
The session ends with Linda in a completely different state. She's moved from seeing an arch-villain to seeing a flawed human mother.
And not just seeing it, feeling it. The transcript describes Linda softening, breathing differently. It's a somatic change, not just an intellectual one. She physically looks lighter.
Which brings us to part 4, the nonverbal magic. Because we can read the transcript, but we can't see the touching. And Satir was famous for touching.
She was a very tactile therapist. And in the 70s and 80s, this was becoming more common, but she had a very specific philosophy about it. It wasn't just hugging is nice.
She had a quote, "Human contact is made by the connection of skin, eyes, and voice tone. These are the things that taught us before we had words."
That is profound. Think about it. Before an infant understands the word love, they understand the feeling of being held, the look in a mother's eyes, the hum of a voice.
The pre-verbal level.
Satir believed that deep healing has to happen at that level, the pre-verbal level.
Yeah.
You can't talk your way out of a problem you didn't talk your way into. Some wounds are older than language.
But the expert in the book makes a distinction. It can't be a gimmick.
Right. You can't just go around poking people and expect them to heal. Andreas notes that if you touch out of strategy, I will touch them now to build rapport, it feels creepy. It feels manipulative.
We've all felt that. The salesman who touches your arm a little too much. It triggers the danger alarm.
Exactly. Satir said it must come from an integrated self. It has to be a passing back and forth of energy. If you are anxious, your touch will feel anxious. If you are congruent and loving, your touch conveys safety.
It's a transmission of your internal state.
You can't fake the signal.
There's a story about the monsters that illustrates the power of this touch. This is one of the most cinematic moments in the book.
Oh, this is one of my favorites. She was working with a family where the parents were terrified of their own children. Things had gotten so bad, so violent, that the parents viewed the kids as monsters.
Wow.
They were literally flinching away from them.
A fear frame. They weren't seeing their kids, they were seeing threats.
A total fear frame.
Yeah.
You cannot parent a monster. You can only fight it or flee from it. Satir needed to break that frame instantly. She couldn't reason them out of it. So what did she do?
What did she do?
She didn't talk about it. She guided the children to walk up to the parents and gently touch their faces.
Wow, that is high stakes.
Extremely high stakes. If the kids had slapped them, it would have been a disaster. It
Yeah.
would have confirmed the monster theory. But Satir had that magic, that congruence, that allowed her to orchestrate it safely. She calmed the children down first. But think about the effect on the parents.
It forces a glitch in the matrix.
Exactly. You have a monster in your mind, a concept of evil. But in reality, there are small, warm hands touching your cheeks gently. The brain cannot hold the monster frame while experiencing the gentle touch reality.
The sensory input overrides the cognitive bias.
The frame shatters. It forces the parents to see the children again. It bypasses the cognitive brain entirely. It's visceral. This is my child. This is skin. This is warmth. The fear evaporated, and then the therapy could actually begin. You can't do therapy when you're terrified.
Part 5 takes us into the Satir meditation. We've talked about her therapy, but she also did these large group processes. And there's this beautiful concept of weaving dreams.
Spend at least 15 minutes a day weaving dreams. That was her prescription. She
Yeah.
said, if you weave 100, at least 2 of them will have a life.
I love the abundance mindset there. It's the opposite of how most of us think, right?
It is. We usually reality check our dreams before we even let ourselves dream them. We say, I'd like to. No, that's too expensive. I wish I could. No, I don't have the time. We kill the dream in the womb.
We edit before we write.
Exactly. Satir said, dream first. Weave it out. Let it exist in your mind. Do it 100 times. Then see which ones can fit into reality. If you don't weave the dream, reality has nothing to catch on to. You need raw material.
Don't kill dreams by checking reality first. That's going on a sticky note on my monitor.
It's crucial. And in her meditations, Andreas includes a script in the appendix. She guides people to make choices that fit.
What does that mean? Choices that fit.
It's her version of self-acceptance. She guides people to look at all their resources, their sights, sounds, feelings, past experiences, and she uses this phrase, give yourself permission to keep what fits and discard what doesn't.
It sounds so simple, but permission is the key word.
It is. We often feel we have to keep everything, our guilt, our parents' expectations, our old habits. Satir invites you to treat your personality like a closet.
Does this fit?
No, throw it out.
Does this fit? Yes. Keep it. It's a very gentle, very respectful way of facilitating change. She uses conversational postulates wrapped in questions to make this happen. Can you give yourself permission?
It's asking, but it's really telling.
It's empowering you to do the thing she's asking. It respects your autonomy while guiding you.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. We've gone from the driveway in California to the universal we, through the bullwhip in the pillow, to touching faces and weaving dreams. If we have to synthesize this, if we have to bottle this magic, what is the formula?
It's a 4-part recipe, really.
Okay.
First, the belief. The unshakable conviction that people have positive intentions and that we are all connected. Without that, you're just a mechanic. Second, validation. The relentless use of, all right, the I-thou relationship, the refusal to play the hierarchy game, constant validation.
Third, linguistic precision. The reframing, the presuppositions, the when you finish instead of if you finish, the tools of the trade. And fourth, congruence. The nonverbal alignment, the touch, the tone, the eyes, being fully present.
It's the combination that makes it magic. You can be precise but cold. You can be warm but ineffective. She was warm and surgical.
That is the perfect description. Warm and surgical. She was tenacious, persistent, and resourceful. Andres makes a point that she never gave up on a client because she truly believed the solution was there. She just had to find the right key to unlock it.
She didn't believe in broken people. She believed in stuck people.
Exactly. And everyone can get unstuck.
I want to leave the listener with a final thought, something to take this out of the abstract and into their actual week. We talked about how Satir believed words are secondary.
Yes. Human contact is made by the connection of skin, eyes, and voice tone.
Here is my challenge to you, the listener. In your next difficult conversation, maybe it's with a partner, a child, a boss, can you drop the words for a split second? Can you stop obsessing over the perfect argument? Instead, focus on your tone, focus on your eyes, focus on your own skin and breath.
Can you look at them and presuppose a positive intention, even if they are yelling?
Can you say to yourself, they are trying to be safe instead of they are attacking me?
If you can do that, you change the energy in the room. You stop the erosion.
And that right there is the beginning of the magic.
It is.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you on the next one.